I mean, end of story. This deal's a wrap, and I didn't even know that I had just begun. I really didn't, Brad. I mean, I had no idea. At the time, I wasn't thinking a 3-time anything, I was a duck caller, man. Yeah. I was just a duck caller.
I guess your dad forgave you. He was okay. I don't know who won that game, but
I don't know who got those tickets, but he did tell me a couple of days later. He said, I'm proud of you like you wouldn't believe. He said, but man, we missed a hell of a football game. I said, yeah, I know. And the Hogs beat them. They beat A&M that night. So anyway, that was my start, man. I mean, that really fueled the fire. Mm-hmm. And I was lucky enough to stay in the game, stay competitive, and push myself probably a little more than most folks would. Then I won the 79 Arkansas State and finished 4th in the world that night. And then I won the 82 Arkansas State and finished 3rd in the world that night. So I got 3 state champions and a world championship under my belt. That's when I decided I wanted to do something that had never been done before, and that was to win 3 state, 3 world, and champion of champions. And now it took a while to get the rest of those, but I was persistent, man. And I mentioned I'd watched the episode of the podcast you did with Rick talking about being competitive. Mm-hmm. I was competitive, man. I was, being an athlete, that competitive spirit was instilled in me. And I wanted to do it. I wanted to be the first to ever do it. And I never let up, man. I just kept pushing, and it's crazy. I won my first world title in 76, the second one in 86, the third one in 93, and then won the champion of champions in 2000.
A lot of decades right there.
Yeah, there were a lot of times I took a lot of lumps and bruises going home, disappointed in myself, and I just, and this is what I tell these kids now. I teach a lot of kids. I know you do, and I tell them, when you get beat, don't get mad. Get even. Mm-hmm. Push yourself harder. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Learn from those mistakes, and go listen to what those judges tell you after a contest, because most of them are happy to share their notes and tell you what you did right or what you did wrong. And that's something that I think everyone, if they don't win, of course, there's only one guy at the end of the day that's a happy man when one of those contests is over. The man that's got the trophy in his hand. Everybody else is mad. But I tell them, don't be mad at judges. Be mad at yourself. If you didn't execute, that's on you, not on them, And boy, I could go on some stories about taking notes in duck calling contests, but that's the thing. You have to learn and then correct those mistakes. And that's what I want. That's what I convey to these kids now. And I tell them, it's not going to be easy. This is not going to be an overnight instant success. If you're not willing to put in the time and effort to do what you have to do to be a winner, well, then don't get it. Don't get in it.
Yeah.
Take up golf, tennis, whatever. This may not be meant for you. But I've been fortunate over the years to help several of them, and that is kind of, living vicariously through them. When they win, hell, I win. That's the same feeling.
Yeah.
Ryan Nolan being a classic example. He came to me in 2000 after I won the champion of champions and said, man, I want to do what you do. I said, well, okay. You ready to work for it? He said, yes, sir. Now, we started in 2000. He won the world in 2008. He put in 8 years to get to that. Mm-hmm. He knocked on the door several times, and he just kept pushing. And then He won in '08, and it was like, okay, now I understand what it is that it took to get here. Mm-hmm. And he said, man, you were right. It wasn't easy, and it's still not. And I said, well, the only thing you can do now is win another one. And bless his heart, he kind of lost interest, you know. He just lost interest. I think because Ryan is a real private guy. He's not one of those that goes out to seek attention, and he just had his way of handling things. And I think a lot of people pressured him in a way that he wasn't used to, and he just said, screw it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I hadn't talked to Ryan forever. Boy, what a like I said, I hadn't talked to him, and man, I don't know when, but what a great guy, what a great duck caller. You know, just a wonderful guy. I miss seeing that guy. I need to look him up sometime.
Yeah, man, I saw him this past year. He lives in Oklahoma, and I stopped by and visited with him going out to Oklahoma this year, and then I'm coming, you know, on the way back. As a matter of fact, I left my enclosed trailer at his place when I went up to Kansas, because I didn't need all that crap. So I tried to get him to go with me. Man, I said, come on, let's go. You ain't got nothing to do. Come on. Ah, man, I'm good. You know, okay. And then I told him before I left there, the last time I talked to him, I said, you know, the Champion of Champions is coming this year, right? Yeah. You going to compete? No. Why not? Just don't have the drive.
Yeah.
I said, man, how can you go from having all that drive between 2000 and '08 to not having it now? And he said, life.
Yeah.
You know, wife, kids.
Yeah.
Job, responsibilities. He said, man, I just don't have the time to do it now. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, life does happen.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. You know, I learned, I was laughing here you talking about, for those that have not been around the duck calling competitive scene, we're talking about, you know, after a contest, you have your judges, and a lot of times when it's over, like you said, you got one happy guy, the guy that won, everybody else trying to figure out why they didn't win.
Yeah.
So a lot of times as judges, when we're in the back, we'll take notes on what we feel, why we gave someone a certain score, good, bad, whatever, things that we think they should work on. I learned quickly the importance of honesty, sometimes brutal honesty, from Mr. Trey Crawford here. One of the first contests I ever judged, when I finally had been working on it, I finally got good enough to win a regional competition to qualify. So then I ended up judging a contest, and I'm judging next to Trey. And this guy he came and he asked, you know, he said, hey, Brad, can you tell me what I need to work on? Let me see your notes, you know. So I pulled out my notes, and I look at my notes. And this gentleman was, what's the word I'm looking for here? Horrible, atrocious. I mean, it was like, you know, it was one of those, you hear this guy blow routine. It's like, why don't you pee on the American flag? Dude, you're just disrespecting everything here, you know. Poor guy, you know. I applaud him for trying. Glad he did. But he just, man, his routine at the time was just not there. Yeah. And I'm looking at my notes and everything that I had written, you know, in almost a paragraph, everything I thought he needed to fix. And I'm thinking, okay, what can I say to this guy and not insult him, let him know, but try to encourage him at the same time? And so I came up with some BS. I went through things. I just picked out a couple highlights of things I think you need to work on. And I said, man, you're doing good. Just keep practicing, keep working on it, you know, just, you know, keep driving. I said, talk to some other judges here and get their opinions as well. Okay, thank you. Then he turns around. I'm sitting right there next to Trey Crawford. And he says, hey, you know, Mr. Crawford, can I see your notes? What do you think I need to work on? Trey just pulls his notes out. He looks at it. He shakes his head. He sticks it in front of the guy. He points at it, and it says, hey, man, I just wrote, you need to take up golf.
But that was being brutally honest, but
sometimes what it takes.
You actually, I guess you saw some promise in there somewhere. I didn't see that, Brad.
No, I didn't. I was just trying to be nice, man.
No, I didn't want to hurt his feelings, especially with all those people standing around. You know, I'm like, oh, man, I'm looking like an ass, you know. But I was just being brutally honest.
So that's what you got to do sometimes.
And that's what I tell these kids now. I said, don't think I'm going to sugarcoat anything. And don't ever think if I'm judging you that I'm going to favor you. I'm going to be your worst critic.
Yeah.
You know, because if I'm teaching you to do things the right way, that's what I expect. So if you screw up, I'm probably going to cut you more than anybody else.
Yeah. So
because you can't help them if you don't tell them the truth.
Yeah.
You know,
if they want to be a champion, they better.
Exactly.
They want to hear the truth.
Exactly.
You know, talking about comp calling. A lot of debate out there, and I'm sure there are guys that are listening to this podcast right now. They're like, competition calling. Just a bunch of crap. You know, ducks don't sound like that. I bet that guy couldn't. I bet he couldn't kill a duck, you know. And if anybody ever told me that Trey Crawford couldn't kill a duck, who I have hunted with you a time or two, I would say, yeah. And I bet back in the day, Dale Earnhardt couldn't handle rush hour traffic in Dallas either, you know.
Yeah.
So what would you say to guys like, what would you tell someone? You're talking about competition versus hunting calling and how they relate and all that. What would you tell them?
First and foremost, in competition, Main Street duck calling. And when I say Main Street, I mean the high, long, drawn-out hails, and, you know, everything is overemphasized. But it's a thing that you learn to develop control. And you know as well as I do what my 4 C's are when it comes to the application to Main Street duck calling, you know, or anything really, but especially with Main Street calling. The 4 words that begin with the letter C: comfort, control, consistency, confidence. And not only confidence in your ability to blow a call, confidence in your ability to demonstrate to the judges and to the audience that you have put your time in and developed all of the other 3 C's. And now you're on that stage and you got 90 seconds to present that. Tell the story with a duck call. You're telling a story and or painting a picture or whatever you want to say. I mean, you're doing what you think is the best you can do to convince those people that are judging that you have total control, you're comfortable, you're consistent in everything you do, and you're damn sure confident. Or you should be. If not, you shouldn't be out there, you know? But to relate the two as far as competition hunting and competition calling and duck hunting, you know as well as I do. There's nothing in a routine when you're blowing on stage that resembles what ducks do, other than the feed calls, the low end stuff.
Right.
You know, all the top end stuff, man, that ain't what a duck sounds like. It's over exaggerated, but it's again, it's a picture you're painting to create that realism. And the difference being, and Phil Robertson once told me, he said, Crawford, you a fine Coliseum caller, a fine Coliseum caller, but you can kill a duck. I said, man, somewhere in there's a compliment. I'm not real sure where that is, Phil, but, you know, I appreciate it. Yeah. I really do. And he said, no. He said, you can do things with a duck call most folks can't. He said, but what I hear is duck. You put duck in your routine that I don't hear in a lot of other guys. Mm-hmm. I said, well, and I'm going to go back to Ronnie Wright. I learned from a guy that he was the same way. I mean, that's what he thrived on. And he loved to fool them. He loved to fool ducks. And I'll be honest, man, you know, Ronnie finished second in the world 3 times. Mike Keller, rest in peace. Mike beat him in 85 by 1 point. I beat Ronnie in 86 by 1 point. And you know who beat him the third time by 1 point?
Who's that?
Harry Milton Richenbach.
Oh, man.
But that was back in 1972, I think. Huh. If I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Butch beat him by 1. So you got a man that finished second in the world 3 times, all 3 times, by 1 point.
Wow.
Got beat by 1 point. That's what I told Phil. I said, man, the guy was a duck. He knew what ducks sounded like, and he could mimic those sounds, and that's who I learned from. So I give him the credit for helping me do what I do with the duck call, you know? So, but yeah, that's the thing that some people don't understand. They think, oh, man, ain't no way that dude called a duck. I totally disagree, because I feel like the more control you have of a duck call, the better duck caller you'll be. And it doesn't matter whether you're on stage or standing next to a tree in the woods or in a pit, in a field, whatever. If you can have the control and present the realistic sounds that ducks make, of course, on a much scaled down version in hunting,
yeah,
man, you should be able to kill a duck.
Yeah.
You know? And hey, man, you know as well as I do, there are a lot of guys that have never stepped foot on a stage to blow a duck call, but they're straight up killers in the woods.
Yep,
you know?
absolutely.
And that's, you know, to me, that's the guys that learn the hard way. They put the time and effort in to learn how to blow a duck call to sound like a duck. And that's one of the things that stuck with me when Chick first started working with me. He told me, you want to sound like ducks. You want to sound like a duck. You don't want to sound like a man blowing a duck call. That stuck, man. That was like, okay, now I know what you're talking about as far as the realism, you know, and that's what I tried to apply along the way. And, you know, it's one of the things that I have said for many, many years, man, I could get on stage and blow a hail call, comebacks, all of that with just about anyone. But I think what really separated what I did and others was my feed call. There again, Ronnie Wright. I mean, I can go back to that name so many times for what he taught me about blowing a duck call and sounding like ducks. And that's what I wanted to do, and that's why I teach people the way I do now, because, I mean, it's realistic, and that's, you know as well as I do, man, that's top of the game, top of the line. You got to be real, you know. Now, if you're in a place where they really want to be, it don't matter, brother. You can stand out there and blow Dixie on one of them. They're coming, you know. But if they're not wanting to be where you are, and you have to force them to come to where you are, you better know how to blow a duck call, you know, because they ain't coming just because you got a nice looking spread on the water or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
You got to be able to handle them.
Yeah.
So, you know, over the years, you learn. You watch them, pay attention to everything they do. And that's when people say you got to read the birds, and that's what you're doing. You're looking at every motion those bodies make, head, butt, wings, the way they posture in flight, everything. You know, you got to take into consideration. They'll show you what they want. If you can do it, they'll show you, you know. And popping quacks or dragging notes, what is it that makes them respond?
Read the birds.
That's it. Read the birds. Know what you do, they responded to it. That's what you got to continue to do, you know. Now, that may change the next day.
Yep.
They may not like that the next day, but you got to try it, you know.
And don't be too hard-headed to change yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah. You know, you talk about this life that you live, you know, talking about, I mean, it's such a cool story, man. You turn 17 years old, you win all those competitions, the state, world, everything right there together. And then look at the trajectory that your life took after that. You know, I know one cool thing that you've done among many things, but man, next thing you know, you're hunting with the President of the United States.
Yeah.
So President Carter,
Yeah.
is that correct?
Yeah.
Tell me about that. That had to be cool. Now, he was the president at the time, right?
No,
Or he
no,
was
he-
not at
no,
the time.
no.
Now, he used to hunt, though, when he was president, right? He
Oh,
hunted with Kanister,
yeah.
right?
He
Kanister
hunted
Hodges,
with Kanister Hodges, yep.
senator from Arkansas, used to be around Newport. Where
Yeah, he
you
was
and I
from
both,
Newport.
yeah.
Kanister and my dad were great friends, and they hunted together over at Leonard's, the Citra Woods. I'm sure if anybody's listening, they're familiar with the Citra Woods. And Kanister, at the time, was an attorney and a city attorney, and politically involved. He and Jimmy Carter went to school together at Princeton. Their connection began at Princeton. And fast forward through the years, they stayed in touch and developed a great friendship and hunted together and did different things together. And it was 1986 after I won my second world title. Kanister called me and asked if I could help him. He had actually had two places in Mississippi, Wild Wings Hunting Club and Delta Wings Hunting Club. And he had invited President Carter to come hunt with him in Wild Wings. Well, he invited me to come to help, or to blow a duck call, That's all he wanted me for. And I got some stories about Kanister I can't tell on this story here.
That's for another episode, huh?
Anyway, he called and asked if I would, and I said, sure, man. I look forward to it. So a couple of weeks later, I packed up and headed to Grenada, Mississippi, and went to the club. Of course, I had never been there. I didn't have any clue what we were getting to, or what I was getting into. And, man, the directions he gave me to the club were right on the edge of I don't know what that little ridge is there west of Grenada, but there's a ridge that runs through there north-south, and on the west side of it is just flat pancake ground, delta land, all the way to the Mississippi River. But he gave me directions to get to the house, and man, when I turned off the highway and started climbing up these hills, and I'm thinking, what in the world? Anyway, short story, I got there, I got out of my truck, and I didn't know any better, man, I grabbed my weapon and my bag and started going in the house. Oh, who are you? Who are you? Dude shook his, put his hand out, and I shook his hand, and he handed me his card. First thing I see, Secret Service. I said, holy smoke. I said,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I'll go back out. Come back in. We'll start over. Anyway, I'm like, so what do we got to do here, man? I'm not going to come in the house with this gun, right? He said, oh, yeah, you can come in and just put it right in that room in there. I said, okay. So I said, where's Kanister? He said, well, you put that gun up and I'll take you to where he is. Okay, so we eased back into, they had a nice, and this place was a very nice place. Kind of a Spanish casa deal, man. I don't know how to describe it. Anyway, they had a nice little lounge area, and this dude walks me back in there, and of course, Kanister sees me coming, and I don't know why, but he gave me the name Big Daddy Rocker. I don't know where that came from, but when he saw me, he said, Big Daddy Rocker. I'll go in and shake his hand, and he introduces me to Mr. Carter. And, of course, I'm not in a, I don't know, I'm not afraid, but somewhat standoffish because I didn't know what kind of man he was. I didn't know what it was. I thought to myself, well, he's got to be a pretty good guy to be hanging out with Kanister. Because I'd known Kanister for years, and come to find out, man, he ain't no different than us as far as what we love to do. Avid hunter, and a fine shot, I must say. But that was an experience that I really cherish to this day, you know, and to know that those were a part of my being exposed to more and more of what this whole industry was about, you know, and then to have time to sit and enjoy visiting with him and Kanister, knowing the whole time if there were any wrong moves, I was probably a dead man, you know. But I never really felt threatened in any way.
Yeah.
You know, they were cool cats. Two of them. They were cool cats. So it was one of those special moments that I truly love and remember. And again, it's those, man, you've seen it. You've been in, you may not have taken a president hunting, but you've been in a position where you've been able to take people. Oh, yeah. Well, you hunted with Mike Huckabee, didn't you?
I didn't hunt with the governor. I was around the place that he hunted at one time. I guess the one, probably the most well-known famous person that I've taken hunting was Hall of Fame quarterback Jim Kelly.
Yeah.
You know, a guy that I idolized growing up, watched him play football, and then I get a chance to hang out with him and do some hunting with him. Just a great guy.
And I think you'll find 99% of the people that duck hunt or hunt, period, you know, outdoorsmen, they're great people.
And just like you said, like you and I, they're just like normal guys.
Yes.
Once you get to know them, they're just like the rest of your hunting buddies.
Yeah, I mean, you don't. Once you get to know people, their titles or whatever, they don't mean anything.
Right.
They're just a guy sitting with you at a dinner table, having a cocktail and telling stories. You know, great experience. And I cherish those memories.
And no disrespect at all to Mr. Hodges. I actually I don't know him like you do, and not had those experiences with him. But I know the church that I grew up in. You know, he would show up occasionally. He been in church with the man. You know, but like I said, no disrespect to Mr. Hodges, but I've never met another man named Kanister. Have you?
Is that not the most unique name you've ever heard?
Yeah, but I like a guy. If I hear a guy named Kanister, I'm like, I like that guy. I don't even have to know him after that, you know.
I don't think you'll ever find another Kanister.
No.
That is a strange name, but I say strange. It's unique. I mean, K-A-N, Easter. Kanister. Great guy. And I talked to his son, Ken, not long ago. Kanister's, he's on up there in age now, but he's doing okay. I mean, good. Some small health issues, but he's still doing okay. I need to go see that cat, man. I called him after he threw the nickname Big Daddy Rocker on me. I just referred to him as the head duck, you know. But if I wanted to go hunt somewhere, all I had to do was call Kanister. You know, he'd make it happen. We did a lot of favors for each other over the years. And I'll give you the background. Kanister, like I said, he was an attorney, a city attorney, then a judge. Then he was, I think, a junior senator or whatever. I'm not real sure.
Yeah, and I may have even said it wrong earlier I may have said state senator. I mean, we're talking about on the federal level. He was a senator.
Yeah. All right. So when, let's see, I guess it was John McClellan, who was the U.S. senator when Carter was in office, and he passed. That seat was open for, I think, a year and a half. Mr. Carter appointed Kanister the remainder of that term, and I guess that really strengthened their relationship beyond what it had been, because I can remember Kanister referring to Mr. Carter many times, you know, different places they'd been and things they'd done. So they'd spent quite a bit of time together, you know. And I wish to this day I'd have been able to spend more time with him, because he was just a genuine dude that he loved duck hunt, man. He loves to hunt, period. And I think that given the opportunity, of course, you know, when you get to a point in age where you can't anymore, and that's the one thing I'm dreading, but I know it's coming. then I'm not going to be able to do what I want to do or what I love to do. I'm going to have to leave it to the young bucks. I've made many comments to several of them over the years. Just remember me when I get old.
Well, we won't have the microphones, but you and I, let's just plan right now. Let's make a pact that we'll go to the same nursing home so we can sit around like this and BS a little bit and tell stories.
That's a deal, man.
So telling stories. Now, I love hearing all this stuff, and you've got a ton of things that you could tell with the history of the life that you've led through all with duck hunting in general, the competition, all the waterfowl and stuff. But if you could dig up a funny story, man, I'd love to hear one. If you don't, no pressure, just tell me, we'll move on. But if you got a funny story in mind that you could tell, I would love to hear it.
I got a bunch of them, man.
Jake, get the censor button ready.
No, I won't throw any foul language in there. I think one of the funniest stories that I can tell about a hunt that I've been on, and this goes back many years ago, early 80s. That's when, man, back in the day when hunting over on the Cache River and the Black Swamp was before there was a nice gravel road to a nice concrete ramp, boat ramp, that you can launch 2 or 3, 4 boats in. This was when you turned off of Highway 38 to go into what we call the float road access. You went about a quarter mile gravel. And once you crossed one of them little field roads, it was mud, man. I mean, if you didn't have a 4-wheel drive, you weren't getting to that boat. Well, there wasn't a boat ramp. It was just mud.
Yeah.
Okay? So there were 2 boatloads. The river was high, so we couldn't get out of the boat in the timber, so we had to hunt out of boats. Well, 3 in one boat, 3 in another, and my friend Scott House that you got to meet years ago, Scott was the only one with a dog, and he had a dog named Sugar that he kept one of those collars on, shock collar. And, man, we were hunting out of a boat. It was cold, and Tim Hartwick, David Cleek, and my buddy Moose, Scott McKenzie, were in one boat. Me, Charlie Thornton, and Scott were in another boat. And we were nose to nose. We had all the stuff covering us up, Scott had a dog, again, with the collar on. And we shot some ducks. He sent her out. She picked them up. He's doing all the fancy little whistle blowing and giving us hand signals, getting her, directed her where the ducks were.
Yeah. And
my buddy Tim Hartwick, he should have been a comedian. He missed his calling. He should have been a comedian, man. Anyway, we got a little downtime, a little lull in the action, and he's sitting over there looking it up in the air. He looks over and he says, "Trey Bo." I said, "What?" He said, "Call us some ducks in here so we can shoot some. I want to see that remote control dog work some more." Of course, that just, I don't know why, but it went off on Scott. He was like, "Man, you making fun of my dog?" I said, "No, Scott, we all are making fun of your dog." That was just one of those comical moments. I guess one of those had to be there deals, just to understand the BS that had gone back and forth between us. But he was like, "Call some ducks in so we can shoot. I want to see that remote control dog."
Had to use that controller a few times on that retrieve.
Oh man, yeah. But again, some of the funniest things happen when you're duck hunting or hunting in general.
Yeah,
you just gotta make those memories. Mm-hmm. And it's just like now, I literally laugh every time I think about that. That's just funny. Mm-hmm. It's just funny stuff. And of course, growing up hunting in the timber here in Arkansas, Cache River bottoms, White River bottoms, Black River. That was the only thing I did, And In 1999, I went to West Texas to hunt with a guy named Smokey Rathman. Smokey had, at the time, a place called the Webfoot Connection up in Knox County, Texas, peanut ground. They hunted on dry ground. I had never hunted on dry ground. And I'm thinking, man, what are we doing? You know, it's crazy. But I found out you can sure kill them on dry ground, you know. And then I ran hunts for him the next year. As a matter of fact, yeah, after I won the champions, I went straight from Stuttgart to Rochester, Texas. And that's where I developed my love for hunting on dry ground, Brad, you know. And now that I'm 60 years old, don't get me wrong, I'd love standing next to a tree, kicking water, yanking on the jerk string, whatever. But my big butt loves hunting on dry ground, man, where you can drive your truck out, drop your stuff off. You ain't got to worry about waders. You ain't got to worry about an outboard breaking down on you or whatever, you know. Now, if it's wet, you might get stuck a time or two. But if you're good with your farmer, a lot of times that's not a problem.
Yeah.
You know. Now, if they got a standing crop, which, you know, you're shooting over primarily cut corn, milo, you know, some soybeans, absolutely no rice. And you get accustomed to doing, just like if you would get accustomed to hunting out of a boat or hunting in timber every year or every day. You do it enough, you learn, and you translate everything you do to being successful. Anyway, that's one of the things that I love doing now. Of course, I do still hunt over water, but I like hunting on that dry ground, man. It's gotten me spoiled.
You got anything left on the old bucket list? Something maybe you hadn't done yet that you want to do?
Yeah, I want to go to New Zealand. Man. That's I've been looking at that for the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah,
that looks like a lot of fun to me.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, I'm not a big diver hunter, you know, doesn't do much for me. And I had an opportunity to go to Alaska several years ago to go shoot king eiders. Beautiful, but like I said, didn't do a lot for me. So, yeah, as bucket list go, I'm going to go to New Zealand, man.
Yeah.
I really do. That's Tim Grounds and Hunter went a few years back. Grounds told me, dude, you need to go.
Yeah.
That's something you ought to put on your list, and I did. Mm-hmm. Hopefully before I pass, I'll get that chance.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet you. Well, I've seen the photographs and talked to people that have gone just like you, and they say it's just the same thing. You got to see it. You just got to see it. Yeah. You got to see it. Well, man, let me tell you I'll tell you guys, mainly sharing with the audience here, a little story of mine.
Let's hear it.
I've got 4 guys when it comes to, you know, I had an opportunity to do competition calling, had some success there. I've got 4 guys that I mentioned as mentors, guys that I've learned from a lot of people, a whole lot. Any of the guys listening, don't be offended if I don't put you on this list, but I've got 4 guys that I list as main mentors that really taught me so much, and I feel so lucky that I learned from. And I've had Rick Dunn on here. He was one of them. Had him on the podcast. 2 of the other gentlemen have unfortunately passed away. The late, great Bernie Boyle taught me a lot. Very grateful for him. Butch Richenbach that we lost a few years ago. Miss Butch I think about that guy all the time. And another guy is the guy sitting right next to me here, Trey. You definitely one of the mentors that I had, and I appreciate that, man. One thing. And I've been sitting here thinking about this story, and it's kind of been rolling in my mind as you're talking. I remember when I was competing and not really getting where I wanted to go. And you're going to remember at least the highlights of this story. I contacted Trey, and I said, man, I got to do something different. I got to figure something out. And I said, the best feed call that I've ever heard in my life was Trey Crawford. I'd heard you do that, and it's kind of like you talking about when you learned some of that technique from Ronnie Wright. Like, what is he doing? That's kind of how I was. Man, how is he doing this? And I have to learn this. Right. And I called you. I remember calling. I was nervous. I was like, man, I don't know if this guy's going to, tell me to jump off a bridge, what he's going to do. Man, so gracious. You said, hey, come on up here. I drove to Bentonville.
Yep.
And a restaurant that you were running there at the time, and you took the time to teach me.
We had a good time that weekend.
We had a great time. We had a great time. And you know what? I'm sitting here listening to you talk about Ronnie Wright and Chick Majors and all these names, people we've talked about that influenced you. And then it comes down the road, and you are gracious enough to pass some of that knowledge on to me. And I've tried to help other people. I made an instructional art of flight control that we put on YouTube, and a lot of those techniques that I'm teaching other people are things that you taught me. Right. I don't think I ever mastered it to the level. I don't ever felt like I ever blew a feed call as good as you did. But I think we all take tips, and then that blends with a little bit of our own style, and we come up with something that's just a little bit different. So I've tried to pass on a lot of what you've taught me, Rick, these other guys. Tried to pass that on as well, but to hear that lineage, you talk about it, and I think, man, look at the life you had, and then you gracious enough to pass it on to me. That just, man, it gives me chills. It really does.
Well, and I've told this story so many times, or I've made this comment so many times. It's not actually a story; it's just a comment. And I'll say this, man, I learned from what I continue to say is the best man to ever put a duck call to his lips, Ronnie Wright. So he passed it to me, and I have continued to pass it to others. And I think by learning to do that particular kind of feed call, it's certainly a control thing, because if you don't have that control, you're not going to be able to do it. And it's not that it's any better than what anyone else is doing. It's different. It stands out, and it helps kind of separate. And because I've said all along, anyone can stand on stage if they know how to blow a duck call and blow a hail call, comebacks, quacks, whatever. But duck calling contests are won on the low end, man. I mean, yes, you got to have control of all your top end stuff, but I think a duck calling contest is won on the low end, which is the only time you're able to create realism. And that feed call is real. It sounds like ducks, not like a man blowing a duck call.
Right.
Because when we stand on top of and blow a routine, we don't sound like a duck. No. Or on top end. So you've got to separate yourself one way or another. And it just happens that it worked for me, and it's worked for not only you, it's worked for several others that have been successful in winning contests. Because, and then again, it's not a level of difficulty, it's real. It's what you do that sounds real. And that's, I know I'm being redundant, but that's what it is.
Yeah. Trey, we've got a little bit of a ritual that we've started here. We're sitting at the poker table.
Yeah.
And we're not going to play a hand of poker. We're just going to play a little quick game of war here. High card wins.
Yeah.
Can you reach that through the microphones? Can you cut those cards? I know you don't trust me. You need to cut them. Well, no, I need you to cut them because nobody else trusts me. I've been winning.
Oh, you have?
Yeah.
So this is rigged. Let me see the cards.
Yeah. All right. High card wins. Trey's got 4 clubs. Let's see what I can throw here now.
Wait a minute. Why are you drawing my card?
It's only. Well, you want to do it again? It's only for money if I win.
Oh,
and
exactly.
Let's see 4 clubs. I'm feeling optimistic.
I guess.
I owe Trey Crawford some money. I got a 2. See there, I'm honest, people.
That?
I'm honest.
How about that?
Trey, man,
am I the first one to beat you?
No, you're the second, I believe, right, Jake? Only the second. I was going to go to Vegas, but I'm going to cancel that trip now. Oh, my gosh. Trey, man, look, I can't thank you enough for being here. This has been so much fun catching up with you. I could do this all day.
Me too.
It's a lot of fun, and
I can talk ducks all day.
Well, maybe one of these days you come back and join us again.
Man, I'd love to.
All right, man. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, brother.
All right, man.